one of the most critical components of student growth in terms of learning is feedback, right? And the challenges that we face with feedback are that we have X amount of students all doing deep, significant work, and we're trying to keep up with not only guiding that progress and designing curriculum, providing active, targeted feedback along the way. And I know, just speaking from an English teacher perspective, and now that all of us are writing teachers essentially, that can get pretty cumbersome. And so we're always looking for ways to streamline that ability to give good targeted feedback, but in a timely manner that students can actually act on it, and it doesn't just consume every waking hour of ours as we try to tread water in giving this feedback, right? So how can tech allow us to streamline and reduce the time it takes to give feedback while improving the quality of that feedback? And that is the promise of certain components of tech when used well. And so per George Porter, one of the tech coaches over at Sage Creek High School, I came across Prokeys, or he had kind of put that out there into the techosphere for us. So I started playing with Prokeys, and essentially this is what it does. It shortens, you can type in a very short phrase or even just a couple of letters, hit a certain key command, and it pumps out an entire phrase you've prescribed to that short set of characters. For example, if I'm reading this paper here, let's say this is a student's work, all in Latin, very impressive. And I know that I'm constantly giving like the same 3 or 4 comments because we're working on foundational skills, right? So instead of constantly typing those out for the same student times all of my students, right? Like how many times have we typed the same comment to all the students? What if I just had this prescribed phrase that's 2 characters long, but when I hit my key command, and I'll talk about what that is in a moment, it turns that 2-letter phrase into an entire prescribed phrase that says, excuse me, for example, add more evidence here, or how does this support your claim? How many times have I typed that? I can't even tell you. But if I could just do this, for example, highlight a section, I like to hit Control-Alt-M when I'm in Google Docs and it pops open a comment. I like key commands versus constantly reaching for my mouse. And instead of typing out a long phrase of something about evidence, I can just type EV and I hit Shift and the space bar, and that's my hotkey, or that's my key command that says turn that EV into an entire phrase. How does your evidence prove your claim? So to do that again, I hit EV, I held Shift and the space bar, which you can change, but that's kind of the default hotkey that they give you in this Prokeys program. And then you can hit Control Enter, and you now have a phrase. I can then come down here and I say, oh, your argument's getting a little fallacious here. We used to practice using or avoid using fallacies in our arguments. So again, I'd hit Control-Alt-M. There's my comment. I can type foul, Shift space. There's my phrase. Control Enter. So you have to learn these initial kind of key commands, but once you get them after a little practice, you will fly through your grading, right? So, I mean, you can see how quickly entire phrases are pumped out. What you can also do with this program is include a link in this comment, this prescribed phrase that pops up, to a resource that will help with that. And I think that's where this gets really powerful. I'm not just giving you feedback, I'm providing you with a link to the resources we've probably already looked at in a mini lesson to remind yourself how to go do that. And all because I typed 2 letters and then hit a key command, right? So in this video, we're going to talk about how to set this up, but then also how to combine it with a tool called Drive 20. And we've covered this before, but I'm going to combine it in this video because Drive 20 is an extension, just like the Prokeys one, and we'll talk about that in a second, that will take all 40 students in your class and line up their tabs across the top with one click of a button. So you can just work your way through all your tabs giving this kind of feedback, and you will fly through feedback, essentially coming back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this, which is how can I reduce the time feedback takes but increase its quality at the same time. And that's why I think this is a powerful tool. So let's get started. If you open up any browser page and you just type in Prokeys extension, and your extensions are all these little tools that hang out up here next to your URL bar, and they basically supercharge your browser. They give you all sorts of abilities that the browser didn't have otherwise, like taking screenshots or sending an email from the top or doing a screencast, or in this case, using keys to create phrases. So if I type in Prokeys extension and I hit enter, it's going to be the very first one at the top, Prokeys Chrome Web Store. And as long as it just says extensions back here in blue, which it does, you see Prokeys. Mine's already added to Chrome. Yours, you would have a blue button that says add to Chrome, and you would just click it and then say yes, I accept. And what it does is it puts this little icon at the top, this green box with a white K in it for Prokeys. And now that's just always on, so you can use this anywhere really, this feature. And so you're good to go, it's installed, but now you want to set up those little phrases, and those are called snippets according to Prokeys. That's what they call them. So if I go click that green box, it brings me here to all of my snippets. What a snippet is that little, 2 or 3 character phrase you create that you then assign an entire phrase to. That's a snippet. It's the little pieces. So your first step is noticing that they already give you a couple. BRB, we recognize these, right? So you could actually just, even in a Google chat window or an email, just type BRB and then hit shift space and it'll turn it into be right back. So it could just streamline your workflow for things you're always typing over and over again. I think I do one for sounds good. I say sounds good a lot, so I could just do SG, like right here. SG, shift space, sounds good, even with the little thumbs up icon, and I'm rocking and rolling. So that's what your snippets are, these little phrases. Right away though, I noticed that depending, like from a feedback perspective, you might want to organize your phrases into folders. Like these phrases are just for argumentative writing. These phrases are just when talking about evidence. These phrases are just when doing my emails. So right away, I'd say instead of creating a bunch of these snippets, maybe go immediately create, you see my folder icon here, you can make a folder that you then throw all those in. It's kind of like Google Drive, right? You make a folder and then you throw all the docs in that folder. So if you go to the plus sign here, you can create a new folder, and I titled my first one Test Prokeys, just a test folder. Once you've created the folder, you can click on that folder, and now here are all my snippets I've started to create. And it shows you across the top, right? I went from snippets into my folder called Test Prokeys. So this is where I'm hanging out right now. I could always click back to my snippets, but I'm going to go into my Test Prokeys folder. And if you click Create New Snippet, it says, what do you want the snippet name to be? Snippet is just what's that, the 2 to 3 character phrase you want. Now, it could be as long of a phrase as you want. I just feel like it defeats the purpose if it's any longer than like 2 letters, essentially, 2 or 3. Because at that point, what's the point, right? So like you noticed for my evidence one, it's just EV, but then I type, how does your evidence prove your claim? Fallacy is FAL, additional evidence is AD, and then great job is GJ. I did that just as an example. I would never just type great job. That's not targeted feedback, but just showing to make the point that you could do that, right? Or if you do want to throw that at the end of people's papers, you could. It's very easy to do. So if I create a new snippet, I just do my 2 character phrase here. I'm going to do NW for nice work. Again, I would never give that as feedback, but NW, nice work. So that's the snippet name, to be clear. The snippet body is where the actual phrase goes. So I could say, nice work. I appreciate how hard you've worked on this draft, and I'm beginning to see significant improvements. Based on the feed, you've acted on the feedback. I mean, a whole phrase, right? Blah, 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 right here, something that's meaningful, but I just type NW and then I hit shift space and it's going to pump that out. So I hit my little check markup here to save my snippet, and there it is. So before I go back to my doc and show you how that now works, I'm just going to go to the left here and show you that you have a little bit of a menu going on. You have snippets, and these snippets are just all listed here. But below that is settings. And in settings, it shows you at the top what your hotkey is. What they call the hotkey is that key command you use to turn the little snippet into the big phrase. By default, it's shift and space. I like that because when I'm giving comments in Google Docs, I'm already hitting the control and the enter and the space bar a lot anyway, so that works. If you want to change it though, you can click change hotkey and it'll say type in the key command you'd like to use instead, and then you just type it on your keyboard and it saves it. In my case, I like shift space, so I'm going to save that one there. Okay, so I just created in my new Prokeys an NW as my new snippet. So I could go in, highlight something, Control Alt M, NW, Shift Space. There's my comment, Control Enter. Cool. I probably wouldn't put that at the beginning. I'd put this comment like toward the end, right? NW. There it is. Pretty cool, right? Especially when you're given really targeted feedback or like lengthy feedback. You don't have to type that out a bunch or copy paste it constantly. Now, of course, in giving good feedback, you're not just going to give defaulted phrases all the time. You're going to give some pretty targeted feedback, but at least because you know you're going to give these phrases over and over, you can kind of automate that process or streamline it so that the ones that you give that are unique individual comments are like 1 or 2 really targeted specific comments to that document. And again, when we're working on foundational skills, so often we're just giving the same comments over and over, plus some really targeted comments. So this is just supposed to streamline that process, not replace genuine original feedback that you might give. Okay, so we went to the Chrome Web Store. We just Googled Prokeys extension. We installed it. It went up to the top in my extensions here, and I clicked it, which took me to their webpage. I created some snippets. I first made a folder with the plus sign, right? And then I clicked inside that folder, and I hit the plus sign again to make a new snippet. Here are all my snippets. If I want to delete them, the trash cans are next to them. If I want to edit them, the pencils are there too. And now they're ready to go, so I can jump into a doc and start using them. Again, those key commands are anytime you highlight something, Control Alt M brings up your comment. Type in your phrase, hit your hotkey. For me, that's Shift Space, and then Control Enter. Try that a few times on your keyboard, and I know initially you have to remember that sequence, but once you get it, you'll fly. I mean, you'll fly through giving feedback. And here's where it gets particularly powerful in two more ways that I'd like to show you. Along, as I said, with giving feedback, sometimes we'd like to provide a resource for that feedback, right? So if I go into my Prokeys, close some of this, I can go to nice work, or I can go to it needs additional evidence, right? How does your evidence support your claim? Maybe I taught a mini lesson on this. So I can go edit with the pencil, that phrase, and down here in the body, I could paste a link to a resource that I've used to do that, right? Let's just say this is my lesson, this document here, on how to make your evidence support your claim. So if I go to share, and I get a shareable link, and I say anyone can view, right, because I want my students to view it but not necessarily change it, or even comment. Sometimes students leave comments of how to improve the resource. I think that's really powerful. But in this case, I'll do view, copy link. I can come back here, paste the link, right, save it, and now when I go into Prokeys and I give a comment, I can do Control-Alt-M, EV, hotkey, and now there's a link, Control-Enter. So if a student gets this, they can click the link and it's going to take them, in this case it's to the thing I just copied, but you know, theoretically it would take them to the resource that would help them learn that concept again, or at least review it based on your quality resource you've already used as a mini lesson. And then come back and make this edit and this adjustment. So I really recommend including links to resources. Now keep in mind, because I'd use this, how does your claim prove your evidence prove your claim, I'm probably going to use it a few times in someone's paper if they're really having trouble with that skill. So this same link would constantly show up. So you have to ask yourself, do you want to have that link show up 3 times in a paper, or just maybe once in the end? If you just want it once, then just make your new snippet just the link for that resource. Otherwise, just develop protocols with your students that, hey, keep in mind if you see this comment over and over, it's the same document. It's just baked into this, prescribed thing I'm putting in. And that way students aren't confused, like, are you directing me to multiple resources? Why are you showing me the same resource over and over? That's just protocols and norms for your classroom. So decide how that works, but I think it's really powerful to provide a resource versus just saying, go work on this, right? How do I work on it? Well, click the resource. So that's really cool, and again, you just include that in your snippets by pasting links to those resources. Okay, here's the next piece I want to show you, the one last part. I know this is a longer video, but I want to make sure I don't go too fast. If I go into Classroom, and I'm going to go to PD on site because I have students in there, I'm going to click on this agenda. Let's say this is an assignment. How do they know they learned it? If you click that, any assignment that's in your Google Classroom, you'll notice here are all the documents that were opened by those individuals. These are all your students, for example, right? Instead of viewing them in Google Classroom, there's a Google Drive folder right above all of those assignments. And when you click it, it's just a shortcut over to Drive, but it has everybody's submission here. And this is where I think this combination of key commands gets really powerful. If I've installed an extension called Drive 20, and I'll show you how to go find that in a second, it looks like this. I'm going to pull it up into my extensions. It's a little purple box with a 20 on it. It's designed to go into your Google Drive based on what you designate and pull up each one in a separate tab, each of these papers. So if I select the very first student at the top and then I go hit my Drive 20, watch what happens across the top of my browser here. All of these documents just opened in this order from Alyssa all the way down to Gina. And if I start all the way on the right over here, I can go in and start giving feedback to students and use key commands to just work my way across the top. So let's say I highlight, Control-Alt-M, EV, hotkey, Control-Enter. There's feedback. I'm going to do the same here, Control-Alt-M. Actually, I'll do the NW for nice work. Right, and I fly through my feedback. When I'm done, I can just hit Control-W and it closes that window, and you notice it's the next person who's up. In this case, it's Eric Gross. Eric, where'd you go? Erica, I'm sorry, is right here. So it's working backwards, and that's okay, right? Because if I click here at the first one and I hit Control-W, it's going to jump over to my drive, but I want it to close across the top from right to left. So I work backwards, basically. I go into Erica's paper. I give feedback. Control-W, close, next one. This person's paper. right? And I'm just flying through. So I'm using this Drive 20 extension to just click my way across with the combination of Prokeys and then just hitting Control W after I've opened these up with Drive 20. I'm just flying, right? I'm going through students' papers. I'm giving quality targeted feedback, but quick. And I can work my way all the way to the end. Hold on, let me open that again. And once I've worked through however many students I've opened, I think we ended with Gina, I would just click on the next one, Jen Jaffe, hit the Drive 20, it's going to open the next set. If you right-click the Drive 20 extension too and you go to Options, you can dictate how many you want to open, how many tabs. Let's see. Where are my options? There we go. Count of docs. So you could say I want upwards of 30 documents to open. That's a lot of tabs across the top, but hey, up to you. Or you could say I want as few as 5 at a time and then just hit save. So in my opinion, this is how you can quickly work your way through feedback and not after the fact. You can do it while students are working. You can just be, open up this folder from Classroom. Here's everyone's work, and you can fly right through and make sure you give everyone feedback. And you can organize that by last modified so that you know you're getting everyone in the most recent order. And then just click your next person and work your way through. To find that extension, Drive 20, it's kind of the same thing. If you click it, Drive 20 extension, into your URL bar, it should take you to this Alice Keeler Drive 20. Same process as Prokeys, just add it to Chrome. And then once you do, it's ready to go. Right-click the icon if you want to go to Options and change how many docs open. Otherwise, you're good. You can jump into Google Classroom, pick an assignment, click the folder, and start working your way through. So if you want to try one of these at a time, I think that makes sense, but know that with both of these tools working together, your feedback, again, is reduced in terms of time, but increased in terms of quality and access to resources and etc. And once you get those key commands down, it's a really powerful way to enhance your workflow and benefit students in terms of their targeted learning. Have fun with it. Let me know how you use it, and let me know how I can clarify any of these processes, as well as how you improve them. Thank you.